Hey guys, Retro Gaming Guy here. So today in this video, we're going to unbox, demo, and review the Anbernic RG35XX SP handheld video game console. Now, I'm a big fan of Anbernic, also a big fan of the Game Boy Advance SP, which this very much resembles. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to unbox this. We'll take a look at the layout and design. Different functions and features will be highlighted. And then, of course, we're going to comb through exactly what this offers, plug and play, ready to go straight out of the box. And we'll even dive into a wide range of games today to test out the performance. Let's dive into it and get started. All right, here is our Anbernic RG35XX We'll go ahead and open this up. So first off, I see we have our micro SD card right here sitting on top. Now, worth mentioning that it's not a branded micro SD card, so you definitely want to make sure that you back these up. You don't want to run the risk of corrupting this. Otherwise, you're going to have an awesome handheld that does not have any games or operating systems. So definitely recommend backing this up. Back it up to a SanDisk or a Samsung. Those are my favorite micro SD cards, but 128 gigabytes, so that's pretty awesome that we do have a larger capacity. I remember when we used to get just 32 gigabytes, and then it seemed to go up to 64, but this particular one right here, and not all versions of this are going to be exactly the same. Some sellers of this are going to be selling, those much smaller capacities. So take that into consideration. So I'm going to go ahead and just set this aside because we're going to have to insert that. I'll put it right over here for now. We'll have to insert that into our handheld. So we'll go ahead and set that aside and we'll jump in here. So we do have the kit to go ahead and install a screen protector. We also have our manual. So this is just the two-part wet and dry wipes setup in order to clean your screen before you go ahead and you put in your screen protector right here. So that's awesome to always have. Obviously, you want to make sure that you keep your screen safe and secure. Inside here, we're going to have our charging cable, I'm sure, and it should be a USB-A to Type-C, and there you go. Perfect. USB-A to Type-C right here. Go ahead and tuck that away for right now. We'll put it right back down here. Actually, we'll just toss all this in. Actually, I want to take a quick glance at the user manual here. So it walks through the layout and design, all of your emulator shortcuts. So if you're not familiar with emulation, you may want to take a glance at all of that. Tells you what should be included in here, how to make settings adjustments in terms of language settings, backlight brightness, backlight time, key customization, game quality, all that good stuff. So very good information in here. It is in a couple different languages as well. So definitely liking what this offers. So we'll go ahead and move all this out of the way and we'll take a look at the handheld itself. So let's jump in here. And there is nice padding in here to keep this safe and secure in transit. But here is our RG35XX SP. Let's go ahead and open this up. Very nice screen here. And I like the fact that you can obviously customize, how wide of a, pitch you want on here. But this is how most people will be using it. Feels very much like a Game Boy Advance SP. It's been a while since I've used one of those, but wow, this is very comfortable. Buttons are very responsive. D-pad feels very nice as well. Even going through those kind of diagonal navigations here, it's always kind of how I test this, is to kind of roll my thumb over this just to see how it kind of floats and moves about. Start and select seem to be quite nice as well. We've got what looks like a speaker right here in the center. Right here is going to be our menu button located right between the A, B, X, and Y and the D-pad. Then in terms of the screen here, we have a 3.5-inch IPS screen, which is an awesome size screen for something this compact. So let's comb through we've gone through the control board here with the start, select, A, B, X, and Y, and D-pad menu button, but let's close this up and take a look at what this offers externally now. So we have two micro SD card slots, and we actually already have a micro SD card in slot number 1. So this is likely to be our operating system. There we go. So we've got 64 gigabytes already inserted in there. So we're bringing in the 128 gigabyte micro SD card, which I went and slid all the way over here, of course. So let's go ahead and insert that in place in micro SD card slot number 2. So you just have to kind of push in there. You'll hear it click in place. We have an audio jack connection right next to micro SD card slot 1. So this is going to be your operating system. The 128 is going to be all of your plug and play games. If we go to the right hand side, we have a power button right here and a reset button. If we go all the way to the back side here, what I think is really amazing is the fact that we have a mini HDMI cable right here. So if we had a mini HDMI to regular HDMI cable, we can connect this over to our TV and basically use this as a controller playing entirely on screen. So that's an awesome capability. And then over here we have our USB OTG Type-C connection, which is going to be how we power our device with the included cable that came in the box. We also have our R1, R2, L1, and L2 shoulder and trigger buttons over here. So very nice in terms of where those are located. They seem quite responsive. We'll obviously test this out further, but let me open this up and just see how this feels. It does feel quite nice. I'm not straining to hit the shoulder or trigger buttons there. Very minor adjustment. Seems to line my fingers up perfectly up there. Very well balanced as well. So definitely liking the feel of this. Now, if we go over here to the other side, we just simply have our volume control. Plus is to bring the volume up. Minus is to bring that down. And I like an external volume control. There's nothing worse than having to adjust your volume from within games or within on-screen menus. It's just so awkward to have to do that. So I love the fact that we can make those adjustments externally on here. Because especially with emulators and emulation in general, you have different volume levels by default for different games, and especially when using different emulators for those. We also have the ability to open this bottom compartment up in order to go in here and access the battery, which is something that we don't typically see with handhelds. So that's definitely a nice feature. So let's go ahead. We've got our micro SD card or both micro SD cards in here. We'll go ahead and hold our power button and we'll let this boot up. Now, while this boots up, I'll give you guys some information on the specs of this. Anbernic RG35XX offers a H700 quad-core ARM Cortex-A53 for a CPU. That's 1.5 gigahertz. We have a dual-core Mali G31M2 for a GPU, and we have 1 gigabyte LPDDR4 RAM on here. I already saw that we have the 64 gigabyte micro SD card with the operating system, and then what you get for a game drive is going to depend entirely on where you get it. But today we've got that 128 gigabytes, which I'm stoked to dive in and test out. We also have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth capabilities on here, and of course we have the mini HDMI port on the back to connect this over to a TV. So let's comb through the layout and design here. Now you can obviously adjust your themes here to change the way that this looks, but this is the default theme. So we have game rooms as our first highlighted selection here. Next, we have RA game, and we are going to comb through both of these because they do tend to differ. Sometimes there is a lot of crossover, but you will have different offerings within each one. We have a favorites collection. That's going to be a custom collection that you put together yourself with all your favorite games for easy access. And then over here we have history. So it's going to pull 50 of your last titles in here. So again, it's more of a easy access tool for you. So if you jumped out and you were playing, Super Mario Brothers, you could, shut it down for the day, come back tomorrow, and easily resume right where you left off with the last game that you were playing. Over here, we have a search function, which is always great to streamline and simplify the process of locating games. We also have the App Center over here, and we have settings. And then we loop over to game rooms. So if we go into settings, you can make all of your adjustments within here. You can see we have your network settings, you have your date and time, I/O test, backlight brightness, and we'll actually kick up the brightness a little bit here. So if we select that, you can see currently we're on level 4. We'll just bring it up just a little bit to level 5, and we do see a significant jump on there. Keep in mind you're watching this, through me filming this, kind of externally here. So we're going to lose some resolution in the process, but it still looks quite crisp as far as I can tell. So we'll back out. We're on level 5 there. We can make our volume adjustments over here, so we don't have to worry about that within. So let's comb through game rooms first, and then we'll go over to RA games. So for game rooms, once we open this up, you have the ability to jump into TF slot 1 or TF slot 2. So that's going into either your micro SD card slot that was in here by default, the 64 gigabytes, or going into the 128. So we're going to have a lot of offerings here. I imagine there's going to be a lot of crossover, but still going to be some minor differences along the way. So let's first go into TF slot 1. We have PSP in here, we have PS1, and let's see if we can get the game count for each. We'll jump into PSP first. PSP is going to offer 11 titles here. Let's see what's offered. We got Bomberman in here, Castlevania, God of War Chains of Olympus, Grand Theft Auto Vice City Stories, Mega Man Maverick Hunter X, Metal Slug in here, Pac-Man's in here. This is the Pac-Man Championship Edition, Ridge Racer, Tekken 5, Tekken 6, and then we loop around to Balloons up here, which I'm not familiar with. So 11 games in total. We'll back out. PS1 over here. PS1 has 29 titles, kicking it off with Alien Trilogy, Alundra, Alundra 2, Biohazard, Breath of Fire 3 and 4, Broken Sword, got some Crash Bandicoot in here, some Dino Crisis in here, Gran Turismo, Grand Theft Auto 2, got some Harvest Moon, some Need for Speeds in here, some more Ridge Racer, Spider-Man, Tekken 3's down here, which is my favorite PS1 game. That and Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 for me. Tales of Destiny. So great selection. 29 titles in total over here. Again, on the 64 gigabyte side. Vertical Arcade is going to deliver 156 games. So you can see we do get a screenshot for each of these titles. I know it's a little bit hard to see in this video, but each one of them differs, obviously, title by title. We'll back out. Capcom System 1 with 30 games. Capcom System 2 with 36 games. Capcom System 3 should be much less, just 5 games there. So the counts there do line up. They're accurate. Neo Geo with 152. You get a little bit of cover art or box art for each of those. We have FB Neo over here. And inside here, 473 games. So with this, you're probably going to have some crossover between Vertical Arcade. We have MAME over here. You're probably going to get crossover here as well. 493 for MAME. We have Game Boy Advance, which you got to have Game Boy Advance with this sort of setup. We've got 232 games here. We've got NES with 432 games. We've got Super Nintendo with 429 games. We've got Sega Master System with 353 games. We've got Mega Drive with 481 games. We've got Sega 32X with 9 games. Game Boy Color, 375 games. Regular Game Boy, 403 games. We have PC Engine, 328 games. Neo Geo Pocket Color, 41 games. Sega Game Gear, 328 games. And Wonder Swan Color with 73 games. All right, so we're going to back out. That was all in TF slot 1. We're going to go into slot 2 now. So for PSP games, we have 20 titles over here. They are different titles. And there's, so I think we had, 11 over there before. And it looks like we might have some titles, like Metal Slug's in here again, Pac-Man Championship Edition's in here again. But we've got Soul Calibur Broken Destiny, we've got the Terminator, we've got Street Fighter Alpha 3 Max, Tekken 5 in here. So yeah, there's some crossover, but we are gaining titles with the larger micro SD card. So we'll back out of PSP. PlayStation 1, 137 games. So way more than what I believe was 29 games before. And we'll kind of comb through here somewhat briefly. I don't want to spend too much time going into every single individual collection, but we've got a lot of Crash games in here. In fact, I believe all the Crash games are present for PS1, Crash Team Racing being my favorite. We don't get box art for every single title in here. Some have it, some don't. We got Diablo in here, which is pretty cool. We got Driver 1 and actually 2 Driver 2s in here, which makes sense. Gran Turismo, Grand Theft Auto 2. Lots of good stuff in here. We got some Medal of Honor. We've got some Marvel vs. Capcom. Some Mortal Kombat, Metal Slug, Pac-Man, Resident Evil, Ridge Racer, a couple Ridge Racers, Silent Hill, Soul Calibur, Tekken 3, which is a must for me. Got the Tomb Raider titles in here as well. We've got some Twisted Metal. We've got all the Tomb Raiders, it looks like. So yeah, they got some really awesome things offered in this. And then we're back up to the start. So we'll back out. We've got Vertical Arcade with 154. We've got Capcom System 1 with 30. Capcom System 2 with 35. 5 down here for Capcom System 3. So all of that is lining up with what we had on the smaller capacity card. Neo Geo is going to be 99. So we actually have less over here than what we had on the other one. And that could be just to make more room for more PS1 and PSP games too. So, you know, it is a little bit of a trade-off sometimes, a tug of war, if you will. 1603 over here for FB Neo. That's pretty awesome. MAME has 1392. Wow. Tons and tons of arcade games. We got some Alien 3 The Gun over here. I was just playing that earlier on my modded T2 arcade cabinet. Lots of great stuff. Love the layout of this. It's so seamless to navigate. We'll back out. Game Boy Advance, 947. So we are getting more games in each of these collections now. 679 for NES. Super Nintendo has 1099. Massive collection here. We're going to loop around the opposite way just to see some different things. And not all of these titles are going to have box art that populates in. And that's probably due to restraints on the size. I mean, 128 gigabytes is a good sized micro SD card, but we have a lot of games here. So obviously everything takes up space. So I can understand leaving some stuff off to accommodate more games. That's what's important in the end, is the games, not necessarily, the layout and, all the scraped data here. So 649 for Mega Drive from Sega. Sega 32X over here, 9 games. So it's comparable to what we had before. Game Boy Color 405. We have regular Game Boy over here with 729. PC Engine with 240. Neo Geo Pocket Color, which we didn't have on the other micro SD card, 37 games there. Sega Game Gear with 126. And Wonder Swan Color with 66. So wow, awesome assortment of games, and game collections here are just absolutely stacked. And I'll try to dive in depth here just to make sure there's nothing crazy missing from these. I don't want to spend too much time. We're already getting kind of long into this video, but let's go over to RA Game, because believe it or not, you will have different emulators available over here in this section. So we'll have to do the same thing again. We'll go into micro SD card slot 1 first. And over here we have PSP, 11 games, comparable to what we had before. We have Open Bore now, though, with 8 games. We didn't have that before. We have Dreamcast with 12 games. So what do we have for our Dreamcast? I'm a huge Dreamcast guy. Crazy, we have Cosmic Smash first, but Crazy Taxi 1 and 2. Gauntlet Legends, my all-time favorite game in general, not just for Dreamcast. Out of everything, that's just my all-time favorite game. Loved playing it. House of the Dead 2, which I love the game. Not crazy about playing it on a handheld. Nothing against the game. It's just not as fun, obviously, without a light gun. Marvel vs. Capcom 2. We've got Power Stone 1 and 2. We've got Silent Scope. Awesome sniper game. Soul Calibur. One of my all-time favorite games of all time as well. Virtua Tennis. Love the original. And then we loop back around. So 12 Dreamcast games over here. PlayStation, we have 29. So that's comparable with what we had prior in the other collection. Capcom System 1 through 3. Neo Geo, 152 there. So yeah, everything's kind of lining up there. For Pico, we have 39 options. Poke Mini, we have 28. We have Atari 2600 with 104 games in here for Atari 2600. That's actually pretty fun to play on a handheld like this as well. We have Virtual Boy. Wow, 23 Virtual Boy games. That's pretty sweet. We didn't have that over there either. We have Mega Drive with 481. We have Mega Drive CD over here with 11. We have Sega 32X over here with 9. Sega Master System with 353. So most of these are going to line up, but we do gain access to some more options too. We have PC Engine CD with 4 games, Neo Geo Pocket Color with 41 games, Wonder Swan over here with 73. We have MSX over here, which we didn't have before, 299 MSX games, which is awesome. Wow, N64 is in here. That's crazy. So we have NDS with 12 games. That is pretty sweet. Now, I was not expecting, I'm not a huge Nintendo DS fan personally, but I know a lot of people are, so this is pretty sweet. We've got the Lego Star Wars 2. We've got Marvel Nemesis, Rise of the Imperfects. We have Metal Slug 7, Need for Speed Underground 2, which is a great game. Ridge Racer DS, Amazing Spider-Man, Transformers. Lots of great titles here. Animal Crossing, Final Fantasy, Biohazard. Now, I was not expecting N64 on here, but wow. Definitely have to check out what the performance is like on here. 10 N64 games. We got Bomberman 2, Bust a Move. We got Castlevania, Deep Cover, Gecko 64th, as well as 3. We've got Mission Impossible, Paper Boys here, Wave Races here. So, not super popular titles, honestly. I mean, there's some good ones here for sure, but not the Mario Kart 64 or Super Mario 64. So it is what it is. Atomic Wave with 12 games in here. Cool. Sega Naomi with 15 games. Pretty sweet. And then we have ports down here. How many ports do we have? 11 ports. So we have some Cannonball, which is always pretty cool. Quake's in here. Rick Dangerous, Wolfenstein 3D, Spirit of Destiny as well. So, wow, lots of good stuff. And we're not even done yet. We're just in TF1. We're going to go into TF2. And again, PSP, 20 games. So a lot of what is offered there for like PSP, PlayStation, Capcom System 1 through 3, Neo Geo, etc. Anything that was available in that other selection over here under Game Rooms is going to be present in here as well. But we do gain access to additional Dreamcast games. And over here we have 9. And it looks like we do have some different titles. We've got Capcom versus SNK 2, Capcom versus SNK 2000. We have Dead or Alive 2 in here. We have Soul Calibur in here. Actually, nice. 2 different Soul Caliburs. Yeah, we got some good stuff. So, slightly different game list than that of the smaller capacity card. PlayStation, we have 137 games over here. So, again, aligned with what we found on the other side. We got some Warcraft in here. That was cool. Let's see what Atari 2600 offers. $593 for 2600. Virtual Boy is going to have that 23. Yeah, so all this stuff is going to be, again, comparable to what we had on the other side of things in the game rooms. But MSX 668, Atomis Wave 5, Naomi 6. So yeah, some really solid options here. So let's dive into some games and see what the performance is like on here. I think we combed through pretty much everything that this offers. Obviously, I didn't go game by game, otherwise we'd be here till next month, but tons and tons of games offered on here. It's really quite incredible. So I'm going to slide into some games, see what the performance is like on here. I want to put the spotlight on the more demanding stuff, so I'm not going to spend as much time on, the easy stuff to emulate like MAME or Classic Arcade. I'll focus more on the higher end stuff. Like I want to see what N64 is like, PlayStation, PSP, Dreamcast, all of those, because they're just way more demanding, especially on a handheld like this. So let's see what this can handle.
Strengthen, you win! Battle 2, fight! Strengthen the soul.
Welcome, sir. Please, come on in. Entering the training area should allow you to brush up on your skills. Press the attack button to tail whack those hideous dummies. Press the attack button to tail whack those hideous dummies.
All right, guys, huge fan of what this has to offer. Love the performance of this, but there are some limitations there. We're going to dive into that in depth momentarily, but let's first talk about the layout and design of the Anbernic RG35XX SP. Now, obviously, this looks and feels very much like a Game Boy Advance SP, which I was a big fan of. I love the portability of it. I love the fact that you can make it super compact for carrying around with you by simply, obviously, just folding that in. So this is very small. I could put this in my front pocket. I could put it in my back pocket. I could throw it into my hoodie, throw it into a backpack. Any way that I want to transport this or carry it with me on the go, I can do it very easily. It's super lightweight and it's also very durable. Love that about this. Now, it's got great audio quality on here. I love the fact that the speakers are facing you, the user. A lot of times with handhelds, they're on the back side, they're somewhere on the sides. And a lot of times when you're holding this and handling this, your hands are going to kind of obstruct the audio. It's going to kind of cover the speakers. This is a design where it's coming straight at you. There's no risk of you ever covering up the speaker on here. So really great audio on here. 3.5-inch IPS screen, crystal clear. You guys can see in this video. Obviously, when I'm filming like darker scenes in games, it's much harder to see, but keep in mind that we're losing some resolution just in the process of me filming something, externally here. It's not like I'm doing a screen capture, so we are losing resolution in the process, but in person, this looks absolutely outstanding, and I think it does translate in video, just it's a little bit more limited there in those darker scenes. Love the 4-button configuration here, A, B, X, and Y. Buttons are super responsive. There's no awkwardness to them. I like that they're actually recessed in a little bit too. You can see how we have the circular indents where the D-pad and the A, B, X, and Y buttons are sunken in just ever so slightly. It just makes it really nice to be able to kind of navigate your thumbs around those circles to hit everything that you need without even, paying close attention to where you're pressing on here. You can just feel your way around here effortlessly. The shoulder and trigger buttons, while they are very small on the back side here, your fingers just automatically find them. The adjustments are so minor that it's not awkward at all. It's very well balanced as well. So as I'm hitting my A, B, X, and Y, I can hit my shoulder and trigger buttons without kind of wrestling myself. That is an issue with some other handhelds out there. So I'm a really big fan of the layout and design. We have the external volume control as well, which is a home run. Menu button in the middle, start and select, dead center on here. So really love how well thought out this is, but I mean, let's be honest here, it's very much aligned with the Game Boy Advance SP, which was a phenomenal design as well, and this follows it to a T. So let's talk about the performance. Oh, wait, and before I move on too quickly, we have that HDMI port on here, which enables us to use a mini HDMI to regular HDMI and bring everything up on a screen. So that's just another added bonus on here for me. I didn't demo that today, but it is really well thought out addition to something like this that not all other handhelds offer. So let's talk about the performance now. So in terms of the performance with this handheld video game console, we do have some limitations here. This is going to work absolutely incredible for all your early stuff, your classic arcade, your Atari, your Super Nintendo, NES, Game Boy, obviously, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, all that stuff. Where we start to have some disconnect isn't with Dreamcast. Dreamcast was perfect on here. Now, with the included cards here and everything plug and play, there's limitations, obviously, to what titles are available. But in terms of performance, Dreamcast performs exceptional on here. It's a great experience. N64, very smooth as well. Did jump into one title where the mapping was off on here. I had to go in and actually tweak that myself. So, it's a little bit of legwork that you have to do yourself if you want to have that great experience with N64. But the majority of N64 games were a good experience for me. I can't really say how it's going to perform on the more demanding N64 titles. I would imagine we're going to have a little pushback there, but to me, N64 is an added bonus. I wasn't expecting N64 to even be possible on here, so the fact that even if we have that in a limited capacity, I think it's a home run. PSP, unfortunately, I think should be left off of this. I tweaked the settings with frame rates and stuff like that to try to get a smoother experience, and unfortunately, nothing gave me that desired experience. I did better it ever so slightly, but it was minor adjustments in the end, and it just still left a lot more to be desired. So I would say steer clear of PSP on here. It's just a little bit too much for that to handle. The only downside that I see is that we don't have analog sticks on here. So I'm actually not somebody that takes offense to using a D-pad instead of analog sticks. Some people aren't going to enjoy playing arcade games with a D-pad or PlayStation games with a D-pad only. I don't think PlayStation's bad with a D-pad. I mean, if you think back to the original PlayStation controller, we didn't have those dual analog sticks on there. Certain games, I think it's a better experience to have analog sticks for PlayStation. Some titles, the D-pad works perfectly fine. So it's hit or miss there. It's all personal preference. But for me, I love what this offers. And if you think to, what they were going for with this, they're obviously taking it all back again to that Game Boy Advance SP. With that, you just had Game Boy Advance games, right? Or Game Boy Color games. It was really specific to just Game Boy. With this, we have that and so much more. So it is a home run for me. I love what this offers. Let me know what you guys think about the Anbernic RG35XX SP though. Do you like what you see here? Do you like the capabilities of this? Even if you can't get into every single N64 title or PSP effortlessly, I think it still packs a punch, offers a lot of bang for your buck here. And while we're talking about bang for your buck, let's talk about the price point of the Anbernic RG35XX SP. This is currently selling for right around $74.99 at the time of this video. Obviously, depending on where you're getting it, prices will fluctuate ever so slightly, but to get it with everything that you saw here in this video, $74.99, I don't think it's a bad deal whatsoever. One thing I will make mention of though, there's no Mario games on here, and I get why that is. You'd have to add those yourself. It's really not a big deal to do that, but it is some added legwork again that you would have to do to get all of those up and running on here. So there's also no Donkey Kong, which is one of my favorites. So that was kind of, obviously a step back a little bit of a letdown, but I can add those very easily. I do have ROMs to a lot of those games. So adding those over onto the micro SD card, not a huge deal in the end. Just make sure that you back up the included card because it is a generic card. It's not a Samsung, it's not a SanDisk, so it's not going to be quite as stable. It's not going to have the longevity as one of those bigger brand name micro SD cards. But again, let me know what you guys think of the Anbernic RG35XX SP handheld video game console. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video today, please give me a thumbs up on the video. It's a huge help to me here on YouTube. And of course, hit subscribe to stay in the loop for all future videos right here on the Retro Gaming Guy YouTube channel. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.